Yeah,
Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a very special episode of the show. We have a very special guest here from Styx, singer, keyboard player, and songwriter. Mr. Lawrence Gowan is with us today. How are you?
fantastic. How are you,
I'm doing
Peter?
good. I'm doing good. You got a little day break on the tour, I see, which is kind of nice.
We got a day break on the tour. We start again tonight, though we're in Atlanta tonight. So yeah, but it was nice to get that little moment to kind of soak up some vitamin D.
The tour been going good so far?
Fantastic, just great, and getting better. Yeah, like it's just it's amazing when you're playing on a bill with two other bands. So you got three bands. It becomes more and more kind of connected between the bands and between the overall arc of the evening as the tour goes on, and that's in subtle ways, but it kind of hits its stride, and we felt that the other night, particularly in Kansas City, and it seems to be on the climb. Yeah.
Well, it seems like every summer you guys are on like a great tour package year after year after year with
We
a great,
are.
great
We
band.
are. We really we're very fortunate in that way. The amphitheaters and the fact that you can play a 4 hour, show from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. The opportunity for that is great. And we get a chance to play for people that perhaps have even never seen Styx before and happen to be, or people that have never seen REO or seen Don Felder. So, and last year it was the same thing. 400 people that had never seen Styx suddenly see us, and so it broadens the kind of throws the net wider. So when people once people see a live show and have really embraced it, they tend to come back.
Yeah, and it's got to be nice for you guys. You've been around forever to still be able to go out there and play 5, 10, 15, 20,000 seat venues night after night, year after year. That's got to be a great feeling to be able to still do that.
To end your day with looking at thousands of people with on their feet and big smiles on their faces and their arms in the air and this look of an ecstatic emotion that you've connected through the music is not to be is not to be undervalued. Believe me,
Yeah.
it's just a great uh, fortunate thing to have happen to any musician.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of music, we have new music to talk about here today. Not you guys out on tour, but you are out there promoting the brand new album, which is Circling from Above.
Oh, thank you for holding that up. Yes.
Absolutely. And the wonderful artwork. I'm a big fan of Bird. So I want to go back a few years. So for a band that maybe not all that long ago released Cyclorama and then shortly after that said, yeah, maybe we don't need to put much effort into making new music again because
Right.
the musical times people aren't into listening to new music from older bands and whatnot. You
Yep.
guys now have released The Mission, Crash of the Crown, and Circling from Above
Yeah.
in fairly short time.
Yes.
What kind of changed all that? How did the thinking within the band change to say, you know what, we are inspired to write and release new music? And obviously the reaction from the fan base has been very positive. So when did that all start where you guys are like, let's do this once again?
And that is a great question. Probably the most relevant one that I can kind of address in my time in the band. Um, it's after we did Cyclorama, okay, which was 2003. I mean, when I joined the band, right off the bat, we were talking about let's do an album, let's do an album, and then we played so many shows. I mean, we played over 100 a year for the first 1, 2, 3 years that I was in the band, and the goal was to play 100, and we surpassed that. And but ideas began really surfacing like crazy. And we made Cyclorama, and that was a great way to kind of start this new era, or the this millennium's era of Styx. And shortly after that, though, that's when kind of things went into in the music industry, with the record companies, things went into a kind of a chaotic spin, okay? Because they were grappling with what does the internet, how do we harness this phenomenal tool that's destroying that's destroying our industry? You know, we can get more music to more people around the planet than we ever have been able to. And yet it's like it's pulled down these major labels, or it's pulling them down, let's put it that way. And when we saw all of this going on, and we saw the continual rise of the love of live concerts, and this continual insatiable appetite for people to see bands of the classic rock era, we decided that's where to put our focus. Okay, we have a really strong show, as JY pronounced back then, but there's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to great Styx songs to play in a concert. So we're not going to run out of material. And we're young enough, smart enough, and good looking enough, and doggone it, people like us. You remember that sketch? Uh, from SNL. Yeah, that's really where we put the focus. We put out the odd single here and there. And, and but then there's always something in the background that's going to eventually come into the foreground that that influences everything. So over here you've got, although we're doing so well playing live, and I mean we're among the top 50 grossing acts in America year after year after year, and that's going on. But meanwhile, our creative urges
Yeah.
to write
Burning
music,
inside of you, right? Yeah.
that they begin to kind of clog up a little bit. And we're playing in sound checks, we're playing new things and go, yeah, we got to record that someday. Yeah, we got to get to that someday. Yeah. All of us kind of knowing that, well, that's not really arriving anytime soon because this disarray in the recording aspect of the music business is still not, hasn't settled. And it may never settle. That was basically our mindset at the time. Then I think the next rung on that ladder was that we played, we did a tour where we did the Grand Illusion and Pieces of Eight back to back. There was, I think it was
Saw
20,
that tour. Yeah, it was
2009,
great.
2010.
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, great, great. Yeah. So you know that coupled with in so many cities we'd go to, I'd go into these kind of hipster, let's call it that, resurging vinyl stores, that had, vintage albums. And I'm beginning to kind of at first notice that, yeah, it's the stereotypical guys with the horn-rimmed glasses. Not like the ones you're wearing, much heavier frames. And so I just lost mine actually on an airplane a couple weeks ago. Um, Sadly. You're a little bit fuzzy, but man, you look great. Um,
Thank you.
so so anyway, this kind of fascination with albums, it wasn't, I began to notice, and I'd say it on the bus the other time, I was in there, I saw like guys that are like 15, 16 years old, uh, people, teenagers buying like Dark Side of the Moon or buying, Close to the Edge or getting, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road or Selling England by the Pound. I'm saying,
Or Equinox, right? And it's like,
well, of course, all the Styx albums were in there. They were very short supply in these record stores. I'd always go to them because if I found a clean copy, I'd buy it for myself.
there you go.
So anyway, I would mention this, and right around that same time, Tommy decided I want to make a solo record just for the hell of it. I just want to do one because I'd been working with Jack Blades and with Willie Vankovich, who had joined them for the Shaw Blades run. And so they made that record and Will produced it. And when I heard it, I thought, shit, this sounds really good. I really like the sound of this. I'd met Will. He had a band back then called American Drag, and they'd actually done a couple of shows opening for Styx back then. So I met him, had a good rapport with him. And along the way, we then made another lot. We did another live DVD, and Will was involved in some of the recording and mixing of that. And I just began to notice, man, this guy's really strong. And that's when, at the same time, the record business began to kind of settle a little bit and come to terms with. I'm giving you a long history here, but this is really what led up to it. It had come to terms with how to navigate this new paradigm. And Universal became the record company for Styx again, got all the catalog. I don't know if they got it back or whatever. And they, at their behest, they said, if you guys want to make a new record, we would be ready for one. And so all of that timing, all of those little plates that were spinning suddenly converged. And we began working on the mission in earnest, meaning like we knew we're going to do this. However, we had this one little caveat where we went, if we don't love this record, we don't have to put it out. That's a beautiful bonus to have, is that you have the luxury of saying, if we don't love it, let's not spoil what we've got going because it's going so well. But we did love it, and we intentionally made it as if it was I say this often, as if it was 1978. We went into the studio all together. We used clunky old analog machines. Will was very much the right producer at the right time, right, and the right co-writer as well, who had this fixation on recreating that vintage sound from the classic rock era. And we intentionally made a record where if you put on Grand Illusion, or if you put on Paradise Theater, you could then put on The Mission and not feel that, oh, we've entered a completely different age here. Obviously there's a different voice in there with myself, but there's still that sonically we're in that classic rock era. So we put the record, we were very proud of the album. We put it out, and people began to embrace it. We put a couple of songs into the show. And this is where the digital era is great. We started seeing comments from people saying, I thought this was an old song. I thought that Radio Silence was from like something before back in the wooden nickel days, etc. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted that continuum feeling of that that tonality, let's call it that, to be carried forward into this new era. So the success of The Mission meant we got to make Crash of the Crown. New challenges came up during that time, but the creative, like all that creative backlog began spilling forth, just spilling out. And Crash of the Crown, we're so proud of the fact that within 2 weeks of its release, Billboard have a rock album chart now, and it got to #1, and that was like further cemented the idea that I think we're on the right path here. Let's make another record real quick, and but real quick for us is I guess 3 years, 4 years.
About 3.5 years, yeah, something like that.
Because we've got to squeeze about 400 shows in between now
Yeah,
and then. We didn't want to lose what we built up in that live thing, because that's a huge part of the lifeblood of a band, is just that shared experience of seeing the response from a live audience, and that tells we may have entree here to make more music.
yeah,
And so circling from above, and as you say, in a relatively short time, we've had 3 albums.
yeah.
That's my story.
It's got to feel good for the band as well as for you, because now you have this nice little catalog of a few albums that's stuff that you guys have created together
Yeah.
as a band, instead of you just playing songs but from
Yes,
a previous lineup of the band that you really weren't a part of. So this is now
that's
you,
right.
and it's great that you can incorporate some of this material into the set and fans are accepting of it, which I think is really key.
Yeah, very much so. And you're right about that. There's I loved, from the moment I joined the band, I've really, really enjoyed the whole experience of being with it. And, I've always, been quick to point out that, look, if you love the band, if you love the show, etc., uh, the band that you're seeing today, we are I'm quoting myself because I've said this many times. We are the culmination of everyone who's ever been in Styx, right from the very beginning. So from the Panazzo brothers, and with John and Chuck, and Dennis DeYoung, and then coming with John Saluski, who made remarkable contributions, actually, according to JY particularly, and Chuck, but along the way, that really shaped a lot of how the songs ended up going. So he's someone that obviously that I never met. And then Glenn Burtnick coming into the band in the early 90s when Tommy was doing Damn Yankees, and then Glenn coming back into the band when I was first joined. Uh, we really are like the culmination, and then Ricky Phillips, and now my brother Terry, and Will Ivankovich, of course. Um, in order for a band to have traversed and survived over half a century, it's quite understandable that these changes have to come along. Well, are pretty much inevitable. But there's a spirit to a band, and I think we have somehow found a way, at least from our own subjective opinion, to somehow keep the spirit of what Styx was alive. Much is the same way that I like to compare it to the Rolling Stones, Ron Wood, for example, the third guitarist in that role. And I mean, this was a band that initially it seems to be very kind of the belief that it was Brian Jones' band until it became Mick and Keith's band, and and not to disparage, Charlie Watson and Bill Wyman. But then when I saw, and Mick Taylor had his influence on it, but it was all the Rolling Stones. And when I see Ron Wood, and when I was at a concert not recently, about 10 years ago, I should say, that feels recently to me now. Um, I'm looking at Ron Wood and going, he's the third guitarist in that role
He's still
on
kind of
that
called
band.
the new guy occasionally, right?
He
Meanwhile, he's
is.
been in the band
He
for like
is. And
50 years.
but he's every bit as much a Rolling Stone as anyone that ever was in the band.
Yeah,
So I figure, well, why is that? And I believe it's because the spirit of what that band is survived. And if time is the measure of that, then I think we have carried forward the spirit of Styx quite well into this millennium.
yeah. Were you a fan of the band before you joined?
I'll tell you what I was really a fan of. What I noticed about Styx um, was that they were the first band I noticed that was not from the UK that had progressive rock influences coming in, and they somehow had concocted that along with a pop sensibility and a rock kind of underpinning. And I know, where those forces eventually came from, and the clash of those things, um, resulted in a sound that I was always drawn to. However, when they were having in the height of their years, I never got a chance to see them live, and seeing a band live, was to me the ultimate test as to how I feel about them. So I was playing so much with my own band and then my solo career. I never got a chance to see them. I'd seen Genesis several times, and Yes, and Elton John and Queen, and uh, but I never got a chance to see Styx until 1997 when we coincidentally were doing a show together in Montreal. And at that point, I hadn't opened for anyone in Canada because that's where my records had done well uh, in 14 years. The previous band I'd opened for was back in early '85 was Supertramp,
Wow.
and the next time it was the same place, Montreal Forum. This was the new Montreal Forum in '97, open for Styx. So I got a chance to see their show, and I immediately felt like I felt this simpatico thing of just seeing them going like, this is kind of like the band I always kind of dreamed of, and I thought their show was great. And so when they called a couple of years later and said, do you want to join the band? I thought, this is the universe is saying something here.
Absolutely. No, it's a great, great fit. I always thought
Oh,
so.
good. Oh, thanks.
So get back to the album, Surfing from Above.
Yeah,
There's a lot of variety on this album. And I think,
yeah,
to me, a big fan of the band, been following you guys for a good chunk of my life. And what I really love about The Mission and Crash of the Crown is you mentioned those 70s vibes, and certainly the progressive rock aspect of the band's music really comes through on both of those albums. I think it's here, but maybe a little less so. I find there's a little bit more um, straight ahead rock and pop elements on this album. There's certainly some really, really great keyboard textures from you. I also find this album maybe a little less guitar oriented. Was that like intentional? There's like more guitar textures. It's like less of like a kind of riffy guitar thunder, so to speak, type of album, which we've heard a lot on Styx albums over the years, but
yeah,
some great material on here. I mean, I think Build and Destroy was an absolute home run choice of a first single. I mean, Michigan, King of Love. It's great to hear JY. Always like you always have to have at least one song with JY singing on every
yes.
album because it's amazing how people forget that all the way back in the day, him and Dennis were the main singers in the band.
Yeah, in fact, initially he was the main singer, and then
Yeah.
until they noticed that Dennis had an incredible voice. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
What are some of your favorites on the album and like how did the
Oh,
direction of it kind of take you?
no, Peter, it jumps around. My favorite is a moving target. It's the same as the live show. It's a moving target as to what my favorite is. Um, I think that first of all, what you're saying that we have to somehow evolve in some ways, and in some ways stay true to what we did down the previous record. So that it's a slow growth, but ultimately we serve the song. The song is what dictates whether it's going to have heavy guitars or whether it's going to be more keyboard driven or what the rhythmic aspect of it is going to be. And Todd will make that call, and Tommy J.Y. will make the call on what the guitars should do. Terry was like right all over like how the bass should find its way into this, and ultimately that's how the arrangements land. But I will say this: when we got to the 11th hour and realized we need a JY song, we came up with the JY song.
There you go. There's
We
always
know
that's at
that's
least one. Yep.
it's one of the ingredients.
Yes.
If you're
Yeah.
making a chocolate cake, it is good to have icing on there.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So, um, uh, although I'm trying to cut down on sugar, so we'll say it's a if you're working on a filet mignon. No, okay. Anyway, um, so. I think what I particularly think I'm proud of in this record is there are a lot of flavors. If we can continue to use the culinary
There you go. It works, right?
examples, okay. There are a lot of flavors there. I mean, Blue-Eyed Raven is Tommy doing his folk slash rock slash pop sensibility slash storytelling, all in one song. There's plenty of good tip of the hat from us to the bands that we loved from the 70s. I mean, there's Pink Floyd influences, there's Queen influences,
Oh, a
there's
lot of
Jeff
Queen. Yeah. Yeah.
Genesis influences, there's Alan Parsons influences, and we don't try to mask those. We go at them, the Who, particularly the Quadrophenia
Oh, yeah.
era. So all of those things kind of they're allowed into the tent, so to speak. And I think each song received exactly the right treatment. And I like the fact that you go from Circling from Above at the top of the record, which is very ethereal and sets a mood. It's a mood setting song, quite honestly, and runs all the way through to Only You Can Decide, which when Tommy came up with that, when I heard that song from him, I thought, if this is the last song on this record, which I hear it as immediately, this is going to be a very strong record because if we fill everything else in between, it's really gonna be strong. Um, I'm really proud of Build and Destroy. I had that kind of that chord progression and the melodic synth line and the chorus thing. I had that as an instrumental piece that I've been playing since last September. And I pitched it a couple of times to the guys, and then finally the third one took where they went, yeah, let's go back to that one again. And we kind of went back and in a day, the three of us hammered it out, and we were dancing around by the end of the day. And then the next morning is always the ultimate test. Peter, you come in and hear what you did yesterday, and you might go, oh my God, what were we thinking?
Yeah, you want to
Or
feel the same way you did about it the night before, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And instead, we came in and we all had big smiles on our faces, and immediately kind of said that this is the best way to introduce this album.
Yeah.
So that's why it's the only song that has come out so far, to the full public.
Yeah. I gotta say,
And
you brought it up before. Only You Can't Decide
yeah,
is a heavy song, and I don't mean heavy like heavy metal. It's just you
yeah,
listen to the lyrics and you just like it's like a gut punch at the end of the album, but it's
it
so
is.
powerful. I mean,
Yeah, it is. It
yeah,
is. It sums up. It sums up a lot. It sums up this particular album, but this era of the band in a lot of ways. Because the fate of Styx was very much up in the air, um, and yet the, the band managed to kind of push its way through.
yeah,
But down to an individual basis, that is a very big, and as you said, that is perhaps the heaviest question that a person can confront themselves with.
yeah,
So I love that piece for that reason. I think I think the song "Forgive" has. I'm particularly proud of how that one emerged. I love when we do a trade off of vocals. Tommy does the opening, does the verses, and I do the B verse and the choruses, and we culminate, together on that part, those parts of the choruses. I think Will produced that really, really beautifully. And I think it also poses um, a very personal kind of I mean personal in the sense that it's a universal question that people personally have to confront in themselves about, especially if they've been on the planet for a while, there are things that they have to kind of resolve.
Right.
It's difficult. It's easy to get to pay lip service to that resolve, but another thing entirely for your being to accept or um, to truly equalize the desire to forgive and actual forgiveness, you know.
Well, that's kind of the concept of the whole album is about really making the individual who's listening think because everything that's on this album is very pertinent and relevant to what's been going on in the world and
Yeah.
maybe not surface sort of things, but and
No.
that's why I think it really works as a concept because it's not battering you over the head with it, but as you start to listen to the songs and listen to the lyrics, you're like, oh, yeah, it's like there is a message there, right? And but it's not like someone's trying to it's trying to make you think in a way.
It is. I think the best songs are ones that you suddenly put yourself into the narrative.
Right.
I think that's
100%.
one of the magic of Come Sail Away, for example, is that you're part you're on the ship. It's and I love playing that song for that very reason. Um, there's something on this album that particularly does feel very timely in a myriad of ways, and so yeah, I'm proud of the whole thing. I think the other song I really gravitate towards is "It's Clear."
Oh, that's a fantastic.
Another great trade-off of vocals. That became a thing with Crash of the Crown, where there's more than one lead singer in a song, and it's clear there's three singers, and that take individual parts. And but some of these songs, yeah, are quite heavy. But then we got a party song on there with "Everybody Raise a Glass."
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I think it touches on a wide emotional spectrum, this record.
Yeah, I would agree.
And because of that, I think potentially it could surface to be, one of the top, let's say top 10 favorite Styx records. You never know.
You never know. And you bring up a great point that I wanted to kind of drive home. That was one of my questions, actually. This band has always been known for having great singers, great vocal harmonies. You always had the three distinct voices.
Yeah.
But I will say on these last three albums, you guys are layering in the backing vocals with the lead vocals and sharing the lead vocals on all these tracks better than any point in time in the band's history, I think. There's just some amazing, I mean, the vocal harmonies are just absolutely produced so spectacularly on these albums. It's a joy to listen to. And
Yeah.
I'm a longtime Styx fan. And I love the old days and stuff, but man, you guys are just knocking it out of the park on these albums.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. That's you put that on the front page of the New York Times, please.
I'll do my best.
And that's your assignment. No, I feel that we do have there's always been this powerful vocal ability within this band, and right from the very beginning, and that's something that we try to really strive to number one uphold, but second of all, we really do lift each other. I mean, like we critique each other's vocals. You know what I mean? Even after a show, we'll say when somebody sang one, even if it's one note really well, we'll all kind of acknowledge that. And that kind of gives them on the dartboard, that's what I got to shoot for every single night. And then, but we're also the converse of that. We're critical of each other in sections where we may be a little bit out or we're not hitting the lines, distinctly together, because that's like another great signature of Styx songs is the way that they punch into those harmonies. And in a very, almost staccato type of way. I won't use the musical term for it, but I'll just say they punch into those harmonies in a very unique way. And so we try to keep that intact as well.
Yeah, absolutely. How you doing on time? Because I got two more quick questions for you.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm good. This is the end of my interview stuff
Ah,
today.
perfect. Okay, great.
I've been gabbing for hours.
So the current tour, you guys are out playing Grand Illusion in all its glory once again. I saw the tour you spoke about before where you did Grand Illusion, A Piece of Eight back to back. That was
Oh,
amazing.
good. Yeah.
And for me, I love it's my favorite Styx album, but what I love about seeing a show like this is that, I get to hear Castle Walls
Yes.
and, some of those great deep cuts. Because for me, Grand
Yeah.
Illusion has some of the best deep cuts
Yes.
on any album, and I just love it for that. Do you enjoy revisiting an album like this, playing it for a full tour, and like what are some of your favorite songs to play from that album? And then also, what can we expect to hear from the rest of the show? I haven't gone and looked at any setlist.com or whatever, and I'm going to go see
Yeah.
the show later this summer up here in New
Yeah.
York. But are we going to get to hear a couple tracks off of this, or maybe something else from Crash to the Crown of the Mission?
You're going to hear Build and Destroy. That's the only new piece that we're going to have in the
Okay.
show. It's going over amazingly well.
That's great to hear.
We're just noticing that, yeah, there's nobody's leaving, the new song by the classic rock band means,
For
oh,
the
that's
bar.
time to hit the can or go grab a beer. No, they're staying, they're standing, and they're digging it. We've got a great presentation for it. I mean, it's an epic rock show is what it is. Because I watch it from my own vantage point, and I'm pretty entertained. So so the first part of your question, Peter, do I like doing an entire album like Grand Illusion? Of course I do. It's a great challenge to lay out those songs in the order that they are on the record and to try to remain as faithful as possible to every single note and every nuance of it with this lineup is both a challenge and there's a sense of accomplishment by the time we get to the end of the grand finale. There is this kind of real sense of like, man, we did the first 40 minutes of this show. There was no talking between songs other than Tommy mentioning time to flip the record over when we go from Come Sail
Yep.
Away and Miss America. That's the only time we've had a chance to talk to the audience. And that's you can see them, you can see it's palpable from the stage to see just how the album experience is beginning to deepen with them as they're watching because they've all individually listened to this album in their room probably alone countless numbers of times. And here they are in the thousands, sharing that experience, going through the record methodically, right from beginning to end. And I'm telling you, particularly people who are, I'm going to draw a line and say 40 and under. Okay. So they weren't born in the classic rock era, but they've come to embrace this music the very same as people that are concurrent with it. And who were on the planet when those records came out and listened to them back then. Um, I love the fact that as great as the singles are, and obvious, I love how they Castle Walls or Madness might be their favorite song on that record because they weren't inundated with the radio play that
Right.
pushed Come Sail Away or Fool Yourself at them or Grand Illusion, and that that to me just shows the strength of that record. It's just it runs from top to bottom where it's all so cohesively put together.
Yeah.
It's a collection. And this is why when people grapple with whether are you guys still making concept record? Is there a concept here? That's not the right word for it. And I finally saw the it, after Brian Wilson, a few weeks ago when he just left the planet, um, people are grappling with pet sounds and whether it's a concept record or not a concept record. And that's always been a debatable thing. But somewhere on there, I thought, no, it's a cohesive collection of songs, right? That kind of cohabitate in this one little bowl of 40 minutes, where a concept is very much hinted at because the songs relate to each other so well or seem to dovetail one into the other so easily that it's impossible for people not to listen to it and kind of think of it as a book that's a continuum of an entire thing. You know, I remember the first time I grappled with that with Sergeant Pepper, and then when the Beatles would say, "No, no, it's not a concept involved." Those were songs that went together at the time. I'm like, "No, no, it's not that. You guys don't know what it is. I know what it is."
You know it better because you've heard it all those times, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Grand Illusion is one of those records for me. I love the themes that they visit in that record and how it how it comes together as this one cohesive piece. And I really enjoy playing it, and so does the whole band.
It's pretty magical, yeah. And for the fans, it's a big thrill to go see it played its entirety the way it was originally presented to us,
Yeah.
right? Those years ago. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't have to go through the pain of making that record. And there's always, if to make a great album, there are painful moments along the way, I can tell you.
Yeah.
There are moments of friction that you think are never going to be resolved. And then ultimately, if they do get resolved, they wind up in being some of the greatest things that are about the record. So I went through the pain of, as did the rest of the band, of doing Circling from Above. So it's close to my art and close to uh, my life experience on Earth. But when I get on stage to play Grand Illusion, I didn't have to suffer through that. I just basically have to enjoy the fact that it's a great piece of music and watch the people react.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. One thing I completely forgot that I wanted to ask you, which I think
Sure.
was a stroke of genius, whether you guys intended to do it or not. So when you guys started the tour,
Yeah,
this was available for sale
yeah,
at the gig, and
yeah,
you could order from the website, but not
correct.
available anywhere else. No
No,
digital version. So physical copies were available on
yeah,
tour and on your
yeah,
website
yeah.
way before someone could go stream it, buy a digital copy. Was that intention? I mean, I applaud it because I'm a big physical media guy. So
I applaud it too for this major reason. I love when, and we'll go back to the beginning of this conversation. I love when a record label have a plan. I really do, because I'm from that era. I
right.
mean, in the 1980s when I was on Columbia Records, and when my solo records came out in Canada, the team there had this whole methodical plan, ready to kind of engage with variations on that theme, depending on how things progress. But they started with a plan, and for a classic rock band of our era, simply throwing something out on the internet and hoping that it kind of bobs to the surface is, if I was to be a marketing person for a second, I would think that is just the dumbest thing you can do. You need some cohesive way of presenting this to the world. And our strength is playing these live concerts where we have the indulgence of thousands of people who are there on that night. And if we can present them one, back to the culinary thing, one flavor that they haven't quite tried yet, and it makes them suddenly go, I can get that record right now.
Right here. Yeah.
I'm at this show. You see, that's a great moment. Now, this is where the digital age and what we're doing right now plays such a vital role. They begin yapping about this record. This might be my favorite Styx record, or this record's terrible, or this record's phenomenal. We look at those. I look at those, kind of comments back and forth, and when I see that sort of uh, discussion or that sort of debate going on, I know we've hit a nerve. That's what it tells you. We've hit a nerve, and that begins to snowball to the point where, and this is where I have to give kudos to Universal. They know that by the time this record is officially released, there's already all kinds of
Buzz.
discussion.
Oh,
We
yeah.
haven't to rely on the buzz of radio because they're not they're not in our corner at this point, but as far as playing that stuff, but the internet is, and definitely the live audience who love this band, they're in our corner. So they begin to amass and start the snowball rolling, so to speak, where by the time this comes out on the 18th,
Yeah.
people have probably made up their mind whether they're getting it or not.
Right, right. Because I got a hold of this within a week of it officially becoming available through the
Oh,
outlets we just
yeah, great,
mentioned.
great.
And I posted a review here on the channel, and within like a couple of days, it had like 20,000 views. And so many people were like, "Wait, how did you get a copy of this? I thought it doesn't come out till July 18th. Is it
Yeah,
available?" And then so you have to wonder how many hundreds of people, or hopefully more, went to go find it after they watched my review to say
you,
this is available
you,
now. It's the only way it's available for at least a month. Let me go out and get it. Right.
you are the new, you are the megaphone that we rely on now. We rely on that those reviews, whether good or bad, those are getting the word out there because we're inundated with these things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
We're inundated with so much information that comes at us in little tiny bits and pieces. there's more and more research. This is really not good for our brains.
No.
But I can tell you what is good for our brains and good for our souls is listening to a piece of music undisturbed for about 40 minutes
Yeah,
and letting it wash over you and inform your day. I guarantee if you listen to your favorite record at some point in the day, you've just lived a better day than if you've been scrolling around as I do, like everybody else, listening to bits and bytes and all of that. It's just, it scrambles things ultimately. And so we have to kind of eventually find a place to kind of relegate that and not lose all the great joys of our lives, like going to live concerts and listening to great music, because that's the thing that never lets you down. You
right.
know,
Yeah,
there's never any debate as to whether that's good for you or not.
I
It's
know.
good for you.
People are always looking for something to bring them inner peace, and I've always been a big proponent of music can help you find that peace if you just let it. And I think,
Okay, the only soapbox I would ever stand on to make a proclamation that I can absolutely stand by is that music does not have the capacity to let you down.
correct.
Everything else, this little thing, these boxes that we're talking on right now, and etc., these are loaded with letdown, as well as great convenience and great potential communication. It also has fractured our belief system in all kinds of ways. But music that you love and music that speaks to your soul, um, it it will never let you down. Take a look at some of the great clips you'll see of people that are well into their years of Alzheimer's, and they put a pair of headphones on them and they start singing Frank Sinatra songs word for word, etc. How is that possible? Well, that's the closest thing to magic that exists,
Yeah.
to my mind. There,
Yeah.
now I'm off my soapbox and I'm back.
No, 100%. My father is in a nursing home, and sometimes I go there like on a weekend to go visit him and some of the other residents. There's this one lady in general. She's probably in her 80s, right? They're in the dementia wing, so she's not all that with it. You really can't have a conversation with her, but sometimes they play music in there. This woman knows the words to every Motown hit that she probably ever heard in her life. And when they play that music, she's there singing. She's got a great voice. And I'm like, see that? Music has made a positive impact in her life. And even at this compromised state she's in right now, she remembers every word to all of these great songs and sings them perfectly. And it's inspiring to see that.
It really is. And if this is the only part of this interview that gets aired, I want to share with you a story that I've never told before. First of all, I love your background there. It's just nothing but albums all the way. That's just great to see. Um, that's everyone should have a wall like that in their house.
I agree.
So that's my architecture moment. On this subject, it's not something we ever get to discuss, but I'm going to tell you a story similar to what you just shared. When my dad was in an assisted living place toward the end, um, we had a piano in the room, and I would go in and play, and play him some of his favorite tunes, etc. And as his mental skills declined, um, you know, tragically, right toward the end, he uttered one word to me when he just had less than a couple of weeks to go. And he said one word to me. He went, priest. And I knew that meant he wanted to see a priest. So a buddy of mine who's was a priest from high school, I was able to get a hold of him. He came out and I gave my dad in the Catholic Church they call it extreme unction, if I remember back from those days. And my dad basically could barely kind of get through it. And at the end of it, he said, we thought, okay, that's good. He got what he wanted at the end. I sat down at the piano and started playing. There's an Irish song called "Come Back to Erin." So I'm playing "Come Back to Erin, Mavoni, Mavoni," and my dad starts singing it full voice from the bed. Right?
Awesome. That's
He's just
great.
gone through the last rites. I mean, he would have loved to just have known that this happened. And this priest, Father Kelly, he goes, "What the hell? He's singing. He's singing in Irish." I can't believe it. He's singing, right? And I said, well, there you go. There's, your stuff kind of was okay, but playing a piece of music really lifts the spirit.
That's really what did the trick, right? Yeah.
So that's what did the trick. So I've never told that story, but it's something that that was a moment in my life that I just think is it was phenomenal to witness and
Yeah.
underscores what we've been discussing here.
Yeah, it's a moment you'll never forget. Thank you for sharing that. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to tell that more often.
You should. You should. That's the magic of this thing we call music, right? Which
Yeah, it is.
cannot be kind of measured at all, you know.
No, it can't be.
So,
And, and thanks for wearing that T-shirt.
of course, I had to dig this one. I have a whole drawer full of Styx t-shirts, but I figured this,
Good.
let's kind of promote the newer albums a little bit. So,
Yeah.
Circling from Above is the latest Styx album. Please go out and get your copy if you haven't already, and go out and see Styx on tour, playing all of the Grand Illusion and other assorted hits and favorites and things like that. I have to ask, now that we've gotten three, could a fourth one be on the way in the not too
You
distant
know,
future?
we at this point we don't live our lives looking more forward than maybe the next 6 months or 6 weeks because we're very grateful for how things are. Peter, I absolutely hope that there's another one. And just as we did after the mission, just as we did after Crash of the Crown, it's entirely possible, but it comes down to whether the gods of rock deem it to be
Yeah,
allowed or not.
absolutely. Well, we hope so. So,
Yeah, well, so
based
do
on
I.
everything, I think you guys must be
Absolutely.
pretty excited about all the success that these have had. So,
Oh,
I think
we're elated with that. We love the fact that the band has had such a strong career for over half a century, 53 years now.
yeah, a long
This
time, a long time.
is,
Well,
all
please
right,
send my regards to the band, and
I
especially
will.
Todd's been here on the show with us before, so it's
Oh,
been,
great.
yeah. And I have to ask real quick,
Yeah,
Tommy Shaw is a freak of nature, is he not? I mean, you work
he is.
alongside him all the
Yes,
time.
he is. He is. He is a freak of nature, and I love freaks, and he's a freak of nature.
Yeah.
I, yeah, yes, he is. He is he's such a dynamo on stage, even when sometimes he's had a great day and he brings that to the stage, and sometimes he's had an okay day and he brings greatness to the stage, and sometimes he's had a terrible day and he still brings greatness to the stage. That's what I see. And it is noted and it sets the tone for what everyone else, the bar that everyone else tries to
It's a mark of a true professional, right? And a leader. That's the way it goes.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I want to thank the great Lawrence Gowan for joining us here today. Like I said, please go out and check out the new album. Go check out the band on tour, and we'll see you real soon here on the channel. Visit us
Yep.
on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit that like button before you leave. See you soon. For Lawrence Gowan, I am Pete Pardo. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Pardo.